Hey there, welcome to Darkness Dissected. My name is Suzanne. Today we're looking at the sinister life of the serial killer John Wayne Gacy, a man who to the very end took no responsibility for his crimes. Now there are many people in this world that hide a secret side. I suppose we all do to varying degrees. Might be a fantasy to be covered in cheese, to run naked down your street while singing your favourite ABBA song. Maybe you have a strong urge to learn ballet but have 2 left feet. Whatever your secret side, most of the time it is just something we might feel embarrassed over or hard to talk about. The thing is, most of us are not having thoughts about hurting someone in brutal ways and getting off on it. Gacy did just that, while hiding behind a mask of the comical clown he enjoyed portraying and setting himself up as a local figure in his community. He was born on March 17, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, to Danish and Polish parents John Stanley Gacy and Marion Elaine Robinson. Gacy was the second child born to this couple and was their only son. He had an older sister named Joanne, born in 1940, and a younger sister named Karen, born in 1944. It is stated that the household he grew up in was quite abusive, as his father was a drunk who took to beating his children with a razor strap if it was believed deserving. His wife was also not safe from her husband's anger. Apparently Gacy's sister Karen said that you had to toughen up quickly to deal with these beatings. After a while, Gacy would not cry when he was hit. His father would often call him cruel names like Sissy, Mama's boy, among names nobody should be called. Can you imagine growing up with violence like this, not only emotional, but physical? Now throughout his life, he always seemed to seek out the approval of his father, wanting to make him proud. Due to how his father verbally attacked him, it's understandable that he struggled with accepting his sexuality also. Even when Gacy was at school, he never fit in with the other kids. While those around him were playing games and running around, he was suffering from a congenital heart condition. You can imagine already how his father may well have looked on this as a sign of weakness too. When Gacy was 11 years old, he had an accident while playing on a swing. He suffered a blow to the head that for the next 5 years caused him frequent blackouts. Doctors would eventually find a blood clot on the brain, and this was removed and medications given. After graduating from business school, he worked for a while as a shoe salesman, which is where he met his first wife, Marlon Myers. They married on 9th of April 1964 and had 2 children together, Michael, who was born in 1967, and Christine, who was born in 1968. Now this is described as a period in his life where Gacy said everything was perfect. When visited by his parents, his father is said to have apologised for being abusive and even happily telling Gacy, "Son, I was wrong about you." While married to Marlon, Gacy worked for his father-in-law, who owned a number of KFCs in the area. He was given the position of manager over these stores. Now, since he could be quite charming and also had a thirst for power, Gacy was seen as popular and well-liked in the community. He would even hold neighbourhood parties and dress as Pogo the clown, his own creation, to entertain the kids. Also around this time, he joined the local JC's chapter, a fundraising organisation of young men. He would often bring fried chicken to the meetings and requested that the people call him Colonel. Gacy and other members of the group also took a great interest in wife swapping, pornography, drug use and other such things. You kind of get the idea that he was surrounding himself with people that he felt he could let his guard down with. It seems that the urges were starting to creep out bit by bit. Now this is where, on paper at least, things take a turn with Gacy. You see, it seems that around this period of time, he started luring young men to his house. He would show them heterosexual pornographic movies and ply them with alcohol. One of the things that it's claimed Gacy said to one of his victims is, "You have to have sex with a man before you start having sex with women." He was also known to trick young boys into thinking he was commissioned to carry out experiments, so to speak, to see if they were a homosexual, even paying boys up to $50 a time. Then the shit hit the fan for Gacy. It was reported that he had sexually assaulted a young man named Donald Voorhees, the son of a member of his JC chapter. Now obviously, Gacy was not happy about this turn of events. He hired one of his employees, a young 18-year-old named Russell Schroeder, to intimidate Voorhees, paying him $300 to do so. The young man agreed to this and, after spraying mace in Donald's eyes, commenced beating the poor lad up. Well, intimidation failed and instead just added fuel to the fire for the charges against Gacy. He pled guilty to oral sodomy and was sentenced to 10 years in Anamosa State Penitentiary. Now, while in prison, he was forced to have a psychological evaluation done over a period of 17 days by 2 doctors. They concluded that, in their opinion, he had an antisocial personality disorder. This is apparently the clinical term for being a sociopath or a psychopath. Suddenly, with good behaviour, he was released after only 18 months. Now, while he'd been in prison, his wife Marlon only visited him once, apparently, and this was to ask for a divorce. She's said to have told him that if she didn't receive one, her father would take her children away. I mean, seriously, most people would not want to stay with a man like that anyway, who'd been caught abusing someone, so it probably wasn't much of a hard decision for her to make anyway. As a mother, you want to protect your children, and finding out the person you were going to spend the rest of your life with is behaving so horrifically, well, you'd really want to keep your family and yourself safe and out of the picture. In my mind, I even wonder whether it was also a lie about her father, as maybe she felt intimidated by Gacy and feared his reaction to telling him the truth of wanting out herself. Whatever the reason, he never saw her or his children ever again. With nothing to tie him to the area, after he was released, he decided to start afresh in a new place. He chose Chicago. While still out on parole, he was arrested again for sexual assault, but the charges were dropped. Now, in Chicago, he started his own construction company, which was named PDM Construction. He gained himself a good reputation in the neighbourhood and apparently made friends with the local police. Everyone thought he was this lovely guy, even getting to meet the First Lady Rosalind Carter, wife of the former President Jimmy Carter. Gacy also married for a second time on 1st of July 1972 to a lady named Carol Hoff. She already had 2 daughters, so the marriage made him their stepfather. People noted that he didn't seem overly affectionate towards his wife, but loved her 2 girls. While married, it was later said that their home often emitted a foul stench. Gacy would tell his wife and neighbours that it was due to a moisture build-up. By March 1976, his wife had had enough and asked for a divorce. With no wife and stepchildren around anymore, this seemed to make Gacy throw caution to the wind. I mean, he could now invite guys to his home and not have to worry about being caught out. In 1977, a young man went to the police claiming to have been kidnapped and molested by John Wayne Gacy. One thing we need to remember probably about this period of time is that people generally believed that men could not be raped, that this sort of act only happened to women. With these thoughts in mind, the police failed to follow up on the young man's claim. There does appear to be a few times over the course of his killing career that Gacy was nearly caught, or at least under the scrutiny of law enforcement. With his glowing record for community spirit though, and having a local business in the area, people didn't want to look under the mask that was being shown. That was all about to change though. On December the 11th, 1978, Robert Piste, a 15-year-old local boy, was working at Nissan Pharmacy. The young man had seen Gacy walking the aisles of the store as his company had been called in to quote on some work that needed doing. Robert Piste told a colleague that he was going to follow Gacy outside to ask for a job, and sadly, he was never seen again. Now, Robert's mother had been expecting her son to come home, and after not hearing from him, decided to drop by the store to see how he was doing. This is where she was told he was not there currently. Now, by 10 p.m, and still not hearing anything from her son, the call was made to the police that he was missing. Robert was described as a lovely young man, no girlfriend issues and having a great relationship with his family. It was also stated that the night he went missing was also his mother's birthday. There were plans to go out to celebrate, and that this is something his mother said he would never have missed. With all these new claims and witnesses having seen Gacy not only at the store, but Robert's colleagues saying he was going to ask for a job at the construction company owned by our killer, the Des Plaines Police Department could no longer ignore concerns. Now, when the police searched Gacy's house, they found a class ring which had belonged to a missing teenage boy, clothing that was for a smaller bodied man, among many other things. What police also found were bodies while they were searching for Robert. They were everywhere inside the house. Eventually, it would turn out that the official number of victims was 33, and 29 of these were hidden in his house. This would certainly explain the stench that his second wife and neighbours had been complaining about. Of the 29 victims in the house, 26 were in the crawl space, with one body found in the driveway. another in the addition to the property, and the last being under the concrete floor of the addition. The 4 bodies not found in the house were found in Des Plaines River nearby. Now at this stage, you would think that he would admit defeat and hold his hands up, but not Gacy. He blamed everyone else for his actions. When it came around to the trial, the plea that was put in was innocent by insanity, with several psychologists diagnosing schizophrenia as the cause. The thing is, when you take in the evidence, including witness statements and of course 33 bodies, there was not much to argue over. The plea put forward was rejected by the jury, and he was found guilty of all 33 murders. At the verdict, it was noted that no emotion was shown. Even when the families of his victims testified and he heard the pain he'd caused, there was no sign of remorse. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection on March 13th, 1980. Now, again, Gacy was an arrogant man who truly believed with his numerous appeals that he would eventually get released. It's also said that he had an IQ of 118, and those that knew him said he was arrogant, dismissive, and had an inflated opinion of himself right up to the end. He is even viewed as pushy, which might be how he got many of his young victims to follow him. Now, when it came round to Gacy's last meal, he ordered a bucket of KFC, which might be a tribute to his more happier days working for his father-in-law at KFC. Simpler times, you might say. Along with the bucket, he ordered French fries, 12 deep-fried shrimp, and a pound of strawberries. That is a whole heap of food. One comment that Gacy did say about the killings, which is another reason for thinking he showed no remorse, was, "I got to kill 33 times and you only get to kill me once." Gacy outsmarted them again. Nice, Gacy. Real nice. On May 10th, 1994, at Stateville Correctional Center, Crest Hill, Illinois, Gacy's life was ended by lethal injection. His apparent last words to the world were, "Kiss my arse," but it might be safe to say that that is probably how people felt about seeing him executed. Gacy, you can finally kiss our arse too. Now, 5 of Gacy's victims were never identified. If you believe that you have a missing loved one who could possibly be a victim of Gacy's, please visit the website cookcountysheriff.org. They might be able to help you find answers and hopefully closure. Also, if today's episode has brought back memories of abuse that you or a loved one has suffered, there is help out there. Not only from support groups and therapy, but charities which offer free chats with trained volunteers that will listen to whatever is hurting you. IMAlive is a charity that talks to people worldwide, and having a friendly shoulder to cry on can help us feel less alone in a situation. The web address is IMAlive.org. Thank you for joining me today to discuss this heinous serial killer. What are your thoughts regarding Gacy? Do you feel he was born this way, or do you feel the abuse he suffered growing up was a factor in his behaviour? Until next time, my fellow dissectors, stay safe out there. Bye for now.